Do one thing, learn how to fix one problem first. And meaning when you first get started, if you're anything like me, you might go 100 different directions and try and offer more services to more people and think that's going to be the way to grow. It
Mm,
makes it really complex and really tough to grow, really tough to scale.
mm,
All you need is one product that addresses one problem for one type of customer. And if you do that for a year, you are going to be so much further ahead than if you try to be everything to everyone and serve 15 different types of customers and publish on every social media platform and you try and market it everywhere. Nobody's going to know what you do. Fix one problem for one type of person.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, RJ Parrish. And RJ started his journey, graduated from high school, really had no desire to do a business, so went off to college, got or to follow a girl who he's now married to, so it worked out. Went into psychology and got about 2 years in the program, realized that they didn't want to do be in school for as long as it took to go through the psychology program, so pivoted over to study more on consumer behavior and market psychology and got a internship doing some with a marketing agency. And then rather than look for another, or after doing that for a period of time, rather than looking for another job, decided to do his own business. It was a bit of a messy process, but he learned a lot over a period of a few years. Then reformed the business a few years later, focused more on video marketing, and has been doing that and growing the business since then. So, with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, RJ.
Hey, thanks for having me, Devin.
Absolutely excited to have you here. So I just gave a much shorter walkthrough or a 30-second version to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack that a bit and tell us a little bit about how your journey got started coming out of high school, having no desire to do a business, but decided you wanted to follow a girl as she went off to college.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun hearing the high level overview of a decade of your life. It's like reading a text message as like a billboard, and you're like, before you get more than a line in, it's gone. Uh, but yeah, that it's a pretty concise summary, to be honest. To give you to set the scene a little bit of high school RJ. I grew up in a tiny town with a single caution light in northern Michigan. So some people may be able to relate to this. The small town crew, if you know what it's like, you've got one store, you've got maybe a restaurant, within like 10 miles. I know how it feels. I went to kindergarten and high school in the same building. It was all interconnected, the same commute for 13 years of my life. And looking around as I was getting ready to graduate high school, I knew what life was going to look like if I stayed in my hometown.
Mm,
Everybody knew everybody. There were 4 or 5 big employers that pretty much everyone ended up at some point. There's the smaller businesses that would pop up, but there's a few that really kept the town alive. And that was my upbringing. That's what I thought life was. I hadn't really been exposed to much else. So I hung around for a little while, waited an extra year for my girlfriend at the time to graduate, went to community college, took general education just to try and get the process started, had really no idea what I wanted to do in life.
mm,
And when I finally left the environment of my small town hometown, I realized that wow, there's actually a lot more out there. There's a lot, my life was not just the way that all life was. I met people that had completely different experiences, and I got into a new environment, and I realized that what I had grown up expecting life to be didn't actually have to be what my life looked like.
mm,
So, where I was at the time, I didn't really like people. I didn't understand them. And it wasn't until much later that that was just my reaction to the people that I grew up around. I didn't like those people. But eventually it prompted me to, it basically came down to, I don't really know what I want to do with my life, but I know that whatever I do, I'm going to end up working with people in some way. So it might be kind of nice to understand them more. So I saw there was a psychology program available. I applied for that and had it in my head that I was going to be a psychiatrist, which you need to have a background in psychology and you become an MD doctor. You go to med school. And I didn't really understand that at the time when I signed up for my initial classes. I thought I was going to do the 4 year thing and then maybe go you have a couple years post grad education. And then someone woke me up and pointed out that it's 4 years undergrad, usually 4 or 5 years post grad to get your doctorate. And then there's a residency. And then it all comes down to you have to pass a test to get licensed and maybe you can practice. And then when all is said and done, you are hugely controlled by pharmaceutical companies and there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tape that you have to navigate. And I realized that wasn't a life that I wanted either. So at this point, I'm 2 years into the program. I completely backpedal. I panic. I run to the registrar one morning and I basically break down and say, please help me. I don't know how I got to where I am. This isn't what I want to do. What can I do with the credits that I have? And we figured out that, well, I could switch around a couple of things, move into a slightly different program, not lose too much of the work I'd already done, and still graduate on time with a marketing minor. Like, that is better than what I have going right now. Let's do that. And I realized that most marketing professors, at least at my institution, were completely detached from the reality of what marketing a business is like today. And that I knew that fairly quickly after like a semester of browsing YouTube. And it gave me a huge amount of encouragement of, hold on, if they think they're professionals because they ran ads in the 80s and they think that's still how things work, then I can do this. I can do something with this. And while I was still in school, I was interning at a local agency running thousands of dollars of ad spend a day during certain seasons on Facebook and Google, and then going to class and having professors say, this Facebook thing it's not a viable marketing channel. Like, what are you talking about? That's insane. So at the time, it was just encouraging to me to realize that there was such opportunity in the marketing world and that it was something that I could actually latch on to. So I abandoned the doctoral route, went into marketing, and that was kind of the first tangential step towards eventually starting my own business.
No, and that makes perfect sense. I don't know that it's only the marketing. I look at the same thing when I go to law school, and first of all, you get a double whammy because one, they don't even know. Law school doesn't teach you at all about business, and so you come out just with and yet most of your career is set up that you have to generate clients, you have to be able to or be a business even if you work for someone else, and then everything is also the theoretical. We're going to teach you the merits of the law, not how it works with practicality. So definitely reflect or understand where you're coming from on or getting that exposure. So now you have that realization, you go into, you make the shift, you go in a different direction. Sounds like it was worthwhile and it was a good direction to head into. Now, as you do that and you're coming out of school, I think you went off to start to work for someone else for a period of time, or kind of walk us through as you kind of finish up the degree and decide where you're going, where you went from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was in my senior year of college, so 2017. I doing this internship where it was kind of part-time in school. I graduate school. I go to work for free I worked for free for about 6 months at this internship because there wasn't a lot else in this fairly small college town. No one else was doing the like modern marketing at the time. I'm like, if I can get in here, then I mean, I've got it. I've got it made. Like I have a spot. And I worked for free for 6 months. We got enough of a client roster doing ad management, social media marketing, that sort of stuff for local businesses that eventually I was able to kind of work to hire myself into the company as its first full-time employee. And then over the next year or so, we took on other interns. We grew to like a team of 6 people. I was working kind of as the VP of the company, if you want to call it that, and our unstructured couple of young guys just like making stuff up as we went and figuring things out. But it gave me a very direct introduction to how business worked, how small business worked, without any of the actual formal training. So there were gaps in my education, to be sure. There was a lot of like, yeah, we can figure that out. We can do it. We'll just say yes. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. And sometimes it would work out, and other times it wouldn't. But after working there full time for about a year, there we had a bit of a whoopsie. And some small businesses will run into this, where we had one client that was roughly 3/4 of our revenue.
Hmm.
And things went great for months. And then there was one like week where ad performance tanked for some, I don't know, something happened. And they ended up pulling the plug very, very short notice, canceled the contract. And suddenly, like, our team of now 6-ish people between full and part-time people was hugely bloated, and it basically imploded in a matter of days.
Hmm.
We once it happened, there was kind of an implicit understanding of, well, I am the highest paid full-time employee outside of the owner. I feel like we know where what decision is getting made right now. So I ended up getting let go with no no warning. This was, I think, right before Thanksgiving that year. So in a terrible time of year for starting any new venture, by the way. But there was, after I had about an afternoon of panicking and figuring, like, trying to figure out, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I had the decision of either I am going to go get a job somewhere. I can go wait tables or be a bartender or just make ends meet, or I can take the things that I've learned over the last year and a half, 2 years, and take a stab at it. I've been basically running a chunk of this business. I've done proposals, I've gotten clients, I've managed meetings, I've fulfilled projects. I have done the work. Why not give it a shot? And I gave myself a year, like, let me try it for a year. And if I'm miserable and I hate it, or it's not working, and it's just not going to be for me, then I'll go do something else. I'll go work for someone. I'll do something else.
Hmm.
And within about 24 hours, I had reached out to a contact in the community. I'd done some work for them through the prior internship. I explained kind of what had happened, and I had signed my first retainer with them for, I think it was like $1,500 a month or something. Nothing crazy, but when you went to zero, $1,500 a month in money, it was a lifeline. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, I've got something to help us get by. So that was how things started, of just no plan, no exit strategy. I'm going to start a business and have this whole thing planned out. I didn't know what I was going to offer people. I had none of that planned, but I just, out of necessity, I made it work in the short term, and I just dove in.
No, it definitely, sometimes the necessity is when it pushes you in the direction that it's helpful. You don't necessarily appreciate it at the time, but you find that it is helpful in the long run. And it, had those even throughout my career where, hey, I never would have gone in that direction. Wouldn't have ever wanted to go in that direction had I not been forced into it, and yet it worked out well, and had a good return, and was what I enjoy now. So you kind of were, to a degree, had the opportunity, also forced in that direction as the other company was imploding. Hey, you take the jobs and you take the contracts that get you up and going and get some sorts of income. Now, I think as we chatted a bit before, that started to kind of evolve, and you kind of, a lot of times as you get going, you start to settle into what do you want to do, what is the business going to shape out to be, what is it, where is it, where are you going to focus on, and what is your talent, your niche. So walk us through a little bit, kind of now as you got started, kind of what was that evolution?
Yeah. So when I first started, because it was very sudden, there was a lot of desperation and necessity of just making ends meet. So I had very little plan or constraint around what I said yes to. That first year, I said yes to pretty much anything that would pay me to use either marketing skills or like photography or video production. So I was kind of across the board. If you want headshots, I'll do it. If you want me to film your wedding, I'll do it. If you want me to do a walkthrough of, hotel renovations, I'll do it. You want me to inspect a roof with a drone, I'll do it.
Hmm.
So it became hard for people to understand what I actually did because it was just anything that people would pay for, which if you're going through starting a business, that's exactly not the right thing to do. Because it's really hard for people to refer work to you if you just are like the everything guy and nobody actually knows what you do.
No, that's
But
true. Yeah, but
over,
it's you do it by necessity because you have to do it, and yet now it makes it hard because nobody knows exactly what you're doing, and because you do everything, it's kind of the jack of all trades. So now, as you kind of come to that realization, say, okay, I gotta hone in or at least clarify my message, and make it a bit more, understandable what you guys do. Kind of, how did you figure out what direction you were going to start to focus on?
yeah, by doing all of the different things, the one benefit of this is it got me very clear on the things that I did not want to do. I knew pretty quickly I did not want to work in the wedding industry. I knew I was good at it, which sometimes that can be a conflict of if there's something you're good at, you can get paid well for it, but you despise it, then you have to draw those lines of it's not about money. If it's going to stress you out and you're going to hate the work, then you need to find something else. So there was a lot of checking the boxes of nope, not this, not this, not that one either. And eventually I started to find the people that I did want to work with. I love working with entrepreneurs, people that have some deeper reason for why they do what they do. Those are people that I could gel with. Those are people I could dig into the story and help them extract it and capture it and make it something awesome. So it took me a while to land on that. But over time, I kind of stumbled into a few opportunities where we were able to create something really compelling for more vision-oriented entrepreneurs. Really capture like what set them apart, why them, and hearing some of the responses from the work that we created. It's like I had the first real aha was when a client told me they shared a draft of a video that we had produced and that it didn't even have their logo on it. We had a placeholder because we were waiting on a high res file. It just said like your logo here, and they sent it to a couple of prospects just to get their response on it, get any feedback. And they came back and said we just closed a $50,000 project because this video explained what we do, and it clicked for them. And I'm like, hold on, like that's kind of cool. And I knew I didn't charge anywhere near that. So the value exchange piled up in my head of like, interesting, if I could do that for them, then what I can charge and like the value of what I can provide starts to go up when the return for a potential client is higher. And that wasn't there when I was doing consumer services. Filming a wedding doesn't have a monetary ROI. Working with individuals is challenging because you're taking out of their vacation fund or their house renovations fund. You work with a business, you have a marketing budget. You've got funds that are allocated, and if you can show a likely return, then the amount you charge can go up. And that was when my very elementary business education started to grow. Like, well, if I want to make more money, then I need to solve bigger problems. And I need to work with these types of clients where it will make financial sense. And then it started me to lean in and focus more on that niche of it needs to be established businesses. They need to have a story that's going to resonate. They need to be passionate about what they actually do. And then we can make something pretty magical.
Hmm. No, sounds like, and I think that's yeah, I would say, every journey is different, but it's a typical iteration. And you start broadly, and then you figure out, hey, I hate those things, or I don't want to do these things, and here's where I can add value. Here's where people are going to pay me, and getting paid is a good thing. And so you kind of go down that route. And so now it sounds like you guys, evolved into that. Here's where we're going to focus on. We're going to do more video. We're going to do more things that we enjoy, but we're not going to do the weddings. And we're going to do more corporate or business type of clients that have the budget and allow us to do that. So now walk or catch us up with that kind of evolution iteration. Where are you guys at today, and kind of where do you see the next 6 to 12 months taking you guys?
Yeah. So there was, as with many times in small business growth, you take a couple of steps forward, something is going to come around the bend and knock you back on your butt. So I had started figuring things out a little bit, but I was still not fully committed towards working with one type of client. I knew that, like, in my gut, that was the direction to go, but I was still saying yes to a lot of different things. And I was doing a lot of deliberating, not really committed to one course of action until around March of 2020, which was, yeah, it was a challenging time for a lot of people. I was in the process of determining whether or not I was going to accept a job offer with a local startup incubator. It was kind of this collection of entrepreneurs. It was right in line with what I was getting really interested in, people that were really driven. We're going to make the community stronger. We're going to create jobs. We're going to make all these opportunities happen. There was government funding locked down. There was a ton of hype around it, a lot of buzz, and they offered me a kind of like a creative officer type position where I was going to be kind of running point on media for this whole thing. It was super exciting, and I weighed it back and forth. You know what? I'll give this a shot and try it out. And if it's not for me, then I can always resign, and they can find I can help them kind of transition over to someone else, and I can take projects on the side. And then the following week, after I accepted the job offer on Friday, that following week, I believe on Tuesday or something, the whole world shut down, and all of my clients called me and said, "Yeah, we our marketing budget is gone. We're now conserving cash for however long this thing lasts. Sorry, we'll pick it up whenever this is done." So thankfully, I had locked down a salaried job the week before.
Always in the timing.
Impeccable timing. But unfortunately, that meant a lot of the government funding that this project was riding on, all of that went away. And it just turned into this wonderful concept that just never really got its legs. And eventually we did the best we could for about 7 months. And then later in December of 2020, the whole team of 12 or 13, 14 people were laid off, and the company basically downgraded to a much smaller concept. So once again, right before the holidays, I am full-time self-employed, and with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder of, this has happened to me twice. It is not happening again. I'm going to figure this thing out. I'm going to build this company, and I'm not going to fire myself. So I got really focused. At that point, my firstborn had just I think she was a month old when I was laid off. I'd just gotten back from paternity leave. So the stakes were higher. I knew that I had to make it work. I needed more stability. I wasn't a college kid anymore, just playing around with this business thing. And I got much more serious about it. And over the next couple of months, my revenues jumped to probably twice what they were at any given point before. There were still some feast or famine cycles without. I would have one really great month, which would turn into like 3 okay months. But then over time, really in 2022, things started to click into place. I started focusing more on what could I create that isn't contingent on me being everything to everyone. and I started building a team around me. How can I serve clients at a bigger level that isn't just me getting them to pay for a service, it's actually fixing a problem, building out more of a suite of products, reaching out to a global audience. And over the last year, things have continued to grow. We just hired on another editor, and we're expanding all the time. But it's now, how can we make you, relevant and able to be found in today's very digital heavy world?
No, it sounds like, it's interesting, that, or I'll say, kicking the butt, so to speak, of, hey, I don't, it's burn the ships. I'm going to be all in. I'm not going to have any other options. And, that oftentimes will put you in or, give you that extra motivation to make something work. Whereas when you have kind of some of those safety nets, oftentimes you're going to say, hey, oh, I always have this other option. Not that safety nets are bad or you shouldn't keep your options open or plan for the future, but it's always interesting how oftentimes that provides a different perspective as you're going along. So, well, now as we've kind of reached the present day of the journey, and it seems like things have already flown by, so we'll have to have you back onto one of our sister podcasts to share a bit more. But for today's episode, I always like to wrap up each episode with the same two questions. So we're going to jump to those now. And you may have already touched on it a bit, but I'll ask the question nonetheless. So, within your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What did you learn from it?
The worst decision I have made was letting a salesperson tell me that I wasn't going to make it without their product. And to give a little meat on those bones, this was at a time where I was just starting to get a little bit of traction, making, six or 7,000 a month gross, so not even profit. And this was a $10,000 product. It was a program that the salesman was in many ways effective, but not necessarily ethical. He hit me with emotional triggers and urgency of, you've only made it this far, and if you want to get anywhere else, if you want to provide for your family, what are you going to do different? And it eventually, I talked myself into it. And the mistake was I did not have the money saved, and I essentially emptied out a tax savings account to pay for it. And the best part of it was the product wasn't even that good. To be honest, there is better education out there on YouTube for free. But what it taught me was, and what I used to kind of talk myself into it, was if I wasn't willing to invest $10,000 into myself and betting on myself that I was going to pull something off, how could I ever ask someone else to invest that in me? And that has paid for itself multiple times. Nothing from the actual program really taught me anything, but that experience has, I think, helped me grow tremendously.
Well, it's interesting, that's interesting that, hey, the program itself didn't, but the causing yourself to have to pay for the program did more for you than anything else. That's definitely a great takeaway, a good thing to learn from the mistake. Not that you'd want to go and spend it again. You probably still hold off on spending it and invest the 10,000 in yourself somewhere else. But at least you got that feedback, and you got that acknowledgement that, hey, I'm willing to be all in. So that's a great takeaway. Second question now that I'm going to ask you. So now if you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you give them?
Yeah. Do one thing. Learn how to fix one problem first. And meaning, when you first get started, if you're anything like me, you might go 100 different directions and try and offer more services to more people and think that's going to be the way to grow. It makes it really complex and really tough to grow, really tough to scale. All you need is one product that addresses one problem for one type of customer. And if you do that for a year, you are going to be so much further ahead than if you try to be everything to everyone and serve 15 different types of customers and publish on every social media platform. And you try and market it everywhere. Nobody's going to know what you do. Fix one problem for one type of person, It makes it easier to get referrals. It makes networking that much more effective. It makes sales calls much more streamlined. I promise you, you're going to make more money if you just focus on one thing.
No, I think that's definitely a great piece of advice, and a lot easier said than done as an entrepreneur. A lot of times you like to follow the, hey, here's the next cool thing and the next great thing, and there's a lot of fun things out there, and at some point you may get to chase those. But I think especially as you get going and as you're building and as you're figuring it out, having that focus can make have a big impact and a big difference. So well, now as we are wrapping towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is to go to LinkedIn, RJ Parrish. Uh, that's where I'm most active. Connect. Even if you just want a second set of eyes on something you're starting, you want to have a discussion around getting a little bit more clarity on the business you're starting, the business you have, you've been trying for a while and just can't quite seem to get traction. I've been there, especially in the creative services space, but even in other verticals, I've worked with enough people. Just reach out, have a conversation, no pitch attached. I'm not going to spring load an offer on you and try and make you feel bad if you don't buy. If there's a way I can help you, I will. And that's all there is to it.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, and make a new connection. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all the listeners who are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. It helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journeys of success. On that note, if you ever need help along your journey with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, RJ, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you, Devin. I appreciate it.